Famous people who passed away in 1743. This is the third part. Before we proceed, please subscribe to our channel to support us. Spencer Compton, 1st Earl of Wilmington. He was born in 1673 and he died in July 1743. His age was 70 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a British Whig statesman who served continuously in government from 1715 until his death in 1743. He sat in the English and British House of Commons between 1698 and 1728 and was then raised to the peerage and sat in the House of Lords. He served as the Prime Minister of Great Britain from 1742 until his death in 1743. He is considered to have been British's second Prime Minister after Robert Walpole, but worked closely with the Secretary of State, Lord Carteret, in order to secure the support of the various factions making up the government. In 1707, Compton became Paymaster of Pensions, a post that he retained for the next 6 years. He was returned unopposed again in the 1708 British general election and was particularly active in Parliament thereafter. He remained as the chairman of the Committee of Privileges and Elections and was a teller on the Whig side. John Campbell, 2nd Duke of Argyll. He was born in October 1680 and he died in October 1743. His age was 62 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Scottish nobleman and senior commander in the British Army. He served on the continent in the 9 Years' War and fought at the siege of Kaiserswerth during the War of the Spanish Succession. He then went to serve as a brigade commander during the later battles of the War of the Spanish Succession and was subsequently given command of all British forces in Spain at the instigation of the Harley Ministry. After conducting a successful evacuation of the troops from Spain, he became Commander-in-Chief of Scotland. During the Jacobite rebellion, he led the government army against the Jacobite forces led by Earl of Mar at the Battle of Sheriffmuir. Afterwards, he served as Lord Steward and then Master General of the Ordnance under Walpole Townshend Ministry. Argyle Street in London's West End is named after him. John Hervey, 2nd Baron Hervey. He was born in October 1696 and he died in August 1743. His age was 46 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was tuberculosis. He was an English courtier and writer known for his candid and often scathing memoirs that provided insight into 18th century British politics and society. Heir to the Earl of Bristol, he obtained the key patronage of Walpole and was involved in many court intrigues and literary quarrels, being apparently caricatured by Pope and Fielding. His memoirs of the early reign of George II were too revealing to be published in his time and did not appear for more than a century. He was a frequent visitor at the court of the Prince and Princess of Wales at Richmond, and in 1720 he married Mary Lepel, daughter of Nicholas Lepel, who was one of the princess ladies-in-waiting and a great court beauty. In 1723, John's elder half-brother Carr died, whereby he became heir apparent to the earldom of Bristol with the courtesy title of Lord Hervey. In 1725, he was elected Member Parliament. Henry Paget, 1st Earl of Uxbridge. He was born in January 1663 and he died in August 1743. His age was 80 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A British nobleman and politician, Paget served as Lord Lieutenant and was known for his loyalty to the monarchy. A British landowner and Troy politician who sat in English and British House of Commons from 1695 until 1712, when he was raised to the peerage as Baron Burton as one of the Harley's dozen. He was a Hanoverian Troy, supportive of the Hanoverian succession. Paget was appointed a deputy lieutenant for the Middlesex on 6 April 1689 and Staffordshire in May 1689. He was elected a Member of Parliament for Staffordshire in November 1695 as a Troy. In 1702, he was made a deputy lieutenant for Buckinghamshire. In May 1714, he was appointed envoy extraordinary to the Elector of Hanover, but refused to go unless he was made an earl, which Queen Anne refused. Lancelot Blackburn, he was born in December 1658 and he died in March 1743. His age was 84 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was a long illness. He was an English churchman and Archbishop of York. He was known for his unorthodox style and rumored connections to piracy during his youth. He was described by Horace Walpole in his memoirs as the jolly old Archbishop of York, who had all the manners of a man of quality. Though he had been a buccaneer and was a clergyman, but he retained nothing of his first profession except his seraglio. In 1691, he became the Canon of Exeter, and in 1705, Dean of Exeter, succeeding William Wake, whose patronage would later stand him in good stead, and in 1715, Archdeacon of Cornwall. In 1716, he traveled to Hanover as the personal chaplain to George I, and the next year became Bishop of Exeter. As bishop, he was active in the House of Lords, where he supported the repeal of the Occasional Conformity Act. Louisa Frad de Bourbon, she was born in June 1673 and she died in June 1743. Her age was 70 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. She was the eldest surviving legitimized daughter of Louis XIV of France and his mistress. She was said to have been named after her godmother, the woman her mother had replaced as the king's mistress. Before her marriage, she was known at court as Mademoiselle de Nantes. Considered attractive, Louis-François had a turbulent love life and was frequently part of scandals during her father's reign. Later in life, she built the Palais Bourbon in Paris, the present seat of the National Assembly of France, with the fortune she amassed, having invested greatly with John Law. Nicolas Lancret, he was born in January 1690 and he died in September 1743. His age was 53 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was pneumonia. He was a French painter celebrated for his Rococo style genre scenes, capturing the elegance and leisure of the 18th century aristocracy. Born in Paris, he was a brilliant depictor of light comedy, which reflected the tastes and manners of French society during the regency of the Duke of Orleans and later early reign of King Louis XV. He remained a pupil of Gillot from 1712 to 1713, was heavily influenced by the older painter, whose typical slender figures can be found in many of his pupils' younger works. Two pictures painted by him and exhibited on the Palais Dauphine had a great success, which laid the foundation of his fortune, and it is said that Strange Watteau, who had been complimented as their author in 1718, he was received as an academician, from thereon becoming a very respected artist, especially amongst the admirers of Watteau. Hynd Rigaud, He was born in July 1659 and he died in December 1743. His age was 84 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A French portrait artist renowned for his grand depictions of Louis XIV and other notable figures, embodying the grandeur of the French Baroque style. He was trained in tailoring in his father's workshop, but perfected his skill as a painter under Antoine Vanck from 1671 onwards, before moving to Lyon 4 years later. It was in these cities that he became familiar with Flemish, Dutch, Italian painting, particularly that of Rubens, Dijk, Rembrandt, and Titian, whose works he later collected. Arriving in Paris in 1681, he won the prestigious scholarship known as the Prix de Rome in 1682, but on the advice of Charles Le Brun, did not make the trip to Rome, which was included in the scholarship. He was received into the Royal Academy of Picture and Sculpture in 1710, and he rose to the top of this institution before retiring from it in 1735. Manuela dos Vergos. She was born in April 1681 and she died in December 1743. Her age was 62 at the time of her death, and the reason for her death was undisclosed. A Spanish nun and spy known for her bravery during the War of Spanish Succession, she became a symbol of resistance and resilience. During the siege of Barcelona, Manuela was given the task to write and copy messages to boost morale in favor of the Austrian cause and enroll agents willing to smuggle weapons and supplies to the besieged city. After the defeat in Barcelona in 1714, her brothers left Spain for Vienna. She continued to write and secretly published anti-Bourbon and pro-Austrian papers, refusing the Treaty of Utrecht and describing and challenging the repression under the Bourbon dynasty. In 1718, her pro-Austrian writings were found after the arrest of pro-Austrian Francisco de Castelvi. There does not seem to have been any prosecution against her. Her texts were published anonymously and are therefore difficult to verify. Pietro Paolo Troisi. He was born in June 1686 and he died in April 1743. His age was 57 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. He was a Maltese Baroque silversmith, sculptor, medalist, designer, engraver, and master of the mint. His works include bronze sculptures of his patron, Antonio Manuel de Viena, designs of various coins, medals, and a wide range of mainly religious works in silver, engraved portraits, designs for temporary, triumphal arches, and designs for works in a number of churches, most notably the Altar of Repose at the Medina Cathedral. His first training was at his father's bottega in Malta. Between 1704 and 1705, he studied at the Accademia di San Luca in Rome on the recommendation of Grand Master Ramon Parolles y Rochefort. He is the second known Maltese artist to have been admitted into the Academy after Melchiorre Caffa. Upon his return to Malta, he made a name for himself as a successful artist in multiple genres. Eric Benzelus the Younger. He was born in January 1675 and he died in September 1743. His age was 68 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A Swedish theologian and scholar, he served as Archbishop of Uppsala and made significant contributions to the Swedish Church and academia. He was a highly learned man and one of Sweden's most important and Enlightenment figures. He was appointed librarian at the University of Uppsala. He was fond of books, and worked to expand the library's collection. Then he studied to be a priest and was ordained in 1709. He also constantly kept in contact with learned men from Europe and in Uppsala. These included botanists, mathematicians, historians, and scientists of other faculties. The correspondence have been kept and were published after his death. His theology was marked by his father's orthodox beliefs, and he wrote and published several books in theology as well as in different sciences. Eir Hager. He was born in November 1685 and he died in April 1743. His age was 57 at the time of his death, and the reason for his death was undisclosed. A prominent Norwegian bishop of the Church of Norway, he was influential in promoting education and religious reforms. In 1727, he became a lecturer in theology at Trondheim Cathedral School after the death of Thomas von Weston. In 1731, he was appointed bishop of the Diocese of Nidaros as a replacement for Peter Crook. During his time as bishop, he was a good administrator and he was considered a demanding manager of church business. In a letter to the priest in his diocese, he made strict demands. The catechism should be taught and the younger people should learn to read with the book. The scripture must be taken seriously, and the priests must visit all homes in their parish every year. An account of the poverty of poor shall be made across the diocese. He made a great emphasis during his time as bishop of mission work among the Sami people in northern Norway. Thanks for watching the video. Please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Have a nice day.